At exactly 2:47 p.m. on September 8th, 2024, Clarence Clay Dobbs drove his baggage truck past the security checkpoint at Reno Airport with $22 million in cash hidden under maintenance tarps. The guards waved him through like they had for 40 years. By 3:30 p.m., Clay had vanished into the Nevada desert, but he left behind a trail that would expose the biggest money laundering operation in aviation history. Before I walk you through the full story, I just have a small favor to ask. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and let me know in the comments. What city are you watching from? It's always amazing to see how far this audience is reaching. Now let's get back to the story. But this story didn't start with a 67-year-old baggage handler driving off with millions. It started 6 months earlier when Clay discovered that his quiet airport job had made him an unwitting accomplice to something much bigger than he could have imagined. Dad, the insurance company denied Lily's surgery again. Sarah's voice cracked through the phone like breaking glass. They're calling it cosmetic even though she can't walk properly without severe pain. We need to find another way, or accept that she'll be in a wheelchair forever. The doctor says we have maybe 3 months before the curvature becomes permanent. Clay Dobbs gripped his ancient Nokia tighter, watching a sleek private jet from Colombia taxi toward the VIP terminal through the chain-link fence. 40 years of moving rich people's expensive luggage around this desert airport, and his own granddaughter couldn't get basic medical care. But it wasn't just about Lily anymore. Something deeper was stirring in Clay's chest. A lifetime of resentment that had been building like pressure in a steam pipe. 40 years of being invisible. 40 years of yes, sir, no, sir, to people who wouldn't remember his name if their lives depended on it. 40 years of watching millions flow through his hands while he struggled to pay rent on a trailer. The insurance denial was just the final insult. The system telling him his family didn't matter, just like he'd never mattered. How much time do we have exactly? Clay asked, but his mind was already elsewhere. He was thinking about those heavy cases he moved every month, thinking about the briefcases full of cash he'd glimpsed, thinking about a lifetime of moving other people's wealth while his own family suffered. 3 months maximum, Sarah replied. After that, the curvature will be permanent and irreversible. Clay closed his eyes, feeling something fundamental shift inside him. This wasn't just about medical bills anymore. This was about 40 years of being treated like a piece of equipment. 40 years of handling millions while living paycheck to paycheck. Lily's surgery had become the excuse, but the real reason was simpler. He was tired of being invisible. All my life, I've moved other people's money, Clay thought to himself as he watched the Colombian jet. Rich bastards who wouldn't spit on me if I was on fire. Maybe it's time I move some of it for myself. The Colombian flight was routine, or so Clay thought. Every month for the past 3 years, the same Gulfstream G650 would arrive from Bogota with the same mysterious cargo. While loading baggage for the flight, Clay overheard pilot Marcus Webb talking quietly to terminal manager Rodriguez near the fuel truck, their voices carrying on the desert wind. 4 LV cases, special handling protocol. No X-ray scanning, no customs documentation required. The client pays substantial extra fees for complete discretion. Just get them from the plane to the pickup location without any questions or delays. Clay had handled thousands of Louis Vuitton cases over the decades. Rich passengers loved their status symbols and expensive luggage, but these 4 cases felt fundamentally different from normal luggage. Heavy beyond reason, dense like they contained metal or machinery. When he accidentally dropped one corner onto his truck bed while adjusting his grip, it made a distinctive sound like bundled paper or fabric. Definitely not clothes or normal personal belongings. His curiosity thoroughly piqued by the unusual weight and sound, Clay used his maintenance access later that evening to install a small surveillance camera in the private hangar, where the cases were always stored temporarily. Over the following weeks, watching the footage religiously, the monthly pattern became crystal clear and deeply suspicious. Same 4 identical cases, always exactly 187 pounds total weight, according to the handling manifest. Always the same pickup crew from a company called Desert Investment Group that Clay had never heard of despite 40 years at the airport. Flight manifests consistently listed the cargo as business documents and promotional materials, which seemed absurd given the weight. But Clay knew better from decades of experience. Business documents didn't weigh 47 pounds per case, And they certainly didn't require armed guards for pickup and transport to Las Vegas casinos. During the next month's delivery in March, one case corner split slightly during what appeared to be routine handling. $100 bills scattered across the tarmac like autumn leaves in the desert wind. Clay's heart hammered against his ribs as he quickly gathered the money with shaking hands, stuffing exactly $10,000 into his tool bag. Nobody saw the incident. Nobody questioned him about it. The pickup crew was conveniently distracted by a maintenance issue with their armored vehicle. The next morning, DEA agent Maria Santos reviewed security footage with laser focus and suspicious intensity, her dark eyes sharp and calculating as she studied every frame. She questioned Clay directly in the employee break room, her voice deceptively casual, but her body language suggesting she suspected something was wrong. Notice anything unusual yesterday during the Colombian flight cargo handling? Any problems with the cases or unusual incidents during transfer? Clay's voice stayed completely steady, decades of military training keeping his composure intact under pressure. Just another routine day moving rich people's expensive luggage around. Though I have to say that particular case seemed pretty poorly packed for such expensive items. Probably should recommend they use better professional luggage handlers next time. Santos stared at him for a long, uncomfortable moment that seemed to stretch forever. The camera angle hadn't shown him pocketing the scattered cash, but her instincts told her something was definitely off about the entire situation. After what felt like an eternity of silent evaluation, she moved on to question other airport workers. Lily's medical condition worsened significantly throughout April. The doctor's words haunted Clay during increasingly sleepless nights. The spinal curvature is progressing much faster than we initially expected. We need to operate within 60 days maximum, or she'll need much more complex spinal fusion surgery with significantly lower success rates and much higher risks of permanent paralysis. Clay began studying the monthly operation with methodical precision that would have made his Air Force supervisors proud. His careful surveillance revealed that exactly $22 million moved through the airport every single month like clockwork. The money was systematically distributed to various Las Vegas casinos for what the paperwork described as investment purposes and entertainment services. The operation had been running smoothly for over 3 years without any detection by federal authorities. Total amount moved through his airport, approximately $800 million in untraceable cash. During the second month's shipment in April, Clay executed his most calculated theft yet. He had spent weeks studying the pickup crew's routines, timing their movements down to the minute. Clay deliberately damaged a case corner using a small metal tool, making it appear like routine cargo handling damage. A taxi accident on the tarmac distracted the pickup crew for 12 minutes. During those crucial minutes, Clay worked with precision. He extracted exactly $45,000 in small bills, 20s and 50s that would be harder to trace. His hands shook as he stuffed the money into his tool bag, wrapping it in shop rags to avoid detection. His weathered face remained impassive to observers, military training keeping his composure while his heart hammered. Santos noticed significant weight discrepancies in the monthly cargo reports during her regular review. She conducted surprise inspections of the hangar area, arriving unexpectedly just as Clay finished cleaning up evidence of the deliberately damaged case. He calmly claimed that a forklift had accidentally bumped the case during routine repositioning of cargo. "Accidents seem to happen a lot around you lately, Clay," Santos said, her voice cold as Nevada winter wind. "Funny how these accidents always seem to involve the Colombian cargo specifically. Starting to see a pattern here. Heavy cases, old equipment, and 40 years of wear and tear," Clay replied with a casual shrug. "Maybe the clients should consider investing in better protective packaging if they're concerned about damage to their valuable business documents." The third theft came during a severe thunderstorm delay in May that grounded all flights for 6 hours. Clay used the weather chaos to access cases in temporary storage, knowing that security cameras couldn't see clearly through the torrential rain and lightning. He calculated exactly what amount wouldn't be immediately missed during the confusion and panic. Exactly $85,000 in small, untraceable bills. The pickup crew arrived earlier than scheduled and nearly caught him with cases open in the restricted storage area. Clay pretended to check for potential storm damage, his hands still dirty from handling cash bundles. Desert Mike, the crew leader with extensive prison tattoos covering both forearms, stared at him with deep suspicion and barely contained violence. "You sure spend a lot of time around our specific cargo, old man. Starting to think you got way too much curiosity for your own good. Curiosity can be real dangerous in this business." "Just doing my job properly and thoroughly," Clay replied calmly, meeting the younger man's threatening stare. "Making sure expensive cargo doesn't get damaged by severe weather conditions. You wouldn't want to explain damaged goods to your boss, would you? I imagine he doesn't take disappointment well." Clay's hidden surveillance camera footage revealed the shocking truth that changed everything. Agent Santos taking a briefcase filled with cash from the pickup crew behind the hangar, completely out of sight from other personnel. She wasn't investigating the money laundering operation at all. She was taking her substantial cut from it. The DEA was compromised at the highest levels, and Santos was a key player in the criminal conspiracy. Sarah brought Lily to visit Clay at the airport in late May during her lunch break. The little girl could barely walk 10 steps, leaning heavily on her grandfather, with tears streaming down her face. "Grandpa, why do I hurt so much all the time? The other kids at school make fun of how I walk. They call me Crooked Girl and won't play with me anymore." Clay's jaw tightened with rage and iron determination. That night, he registered a fake company called Desert Maintenance Solutions, using a post office box and carefully forged business documents. He acquired an old panel van using falsified identification papers and created elaborate false work orders for routine equipment inspection and maintenance. He programmed a professional-grade radio scanner to monitor all airport security, frequencies, and communication channels. The fourth theft was Clay's most technically daring operation, requiring months of preparation. He had studied the maintenance bay's layout, security camera angles, and staff rotation schedules. The theft would take place during afternoon shift change when the area experienced 17 minutes of minimal supervision. Clay temporarily rerouted cases through the maintenance bay using his administrative override codes. He had created falsified work orders citing routine vibration testing. The substitution was a masterpiece of deception. Clay had spent weeks creating identical newspaper bundles wrapped in rubber bands that perfectly matched bank specifications. On the day of theft, Clay executed with surgical precision. He triggered a hydraulic alarm drawing personnel away, then accessed cases and began substitution. Each real bundle was replaced with newspaper duplicates. The theft netted $150,000 in mixed denominations. Clay's escape plan was equally sophisticated. He triggered a second alarm requiring his attention elsewhere, providing perfect justification for his presence in multiple areas. Santos found the fake newspaper bundles during a random inspection 2 days later. She immediately locked down the entire cargo area and interrogated Clay for 3 grueling hours in a windowless security office, using every psychological pressure technique in her arsenal. His carefully prepared alibi held firm under intense scrutiny. He'd been fixing a legitimate hydraulic leak in Hangar 7 with 3 credible witnesses present who could verify his location. "Someone with detailed inside knowledge is systematically stealing from us," Santos said, her face inches from his across the metal table. "When I find out who it is, they're going to disappear into the Nevada desert permanently. Nobody steals from my operation." "Sounds like you need significantly better security procedures," Clay replied evenly, refusing to be intimidated. "Maybe you should hire people who actually know what they're doing instead of relying on incompetent contractors." The fifth theft was directly motivated by Lily's rapidly approaching surgery deadline and deteriorating condition. Clay created a maintenance emergency by deliberately triggering a false hydraulic alarm in the cargo handling system, causing immediate evacuation protocols and general confusion. He intercepted the cases during the resulting chaos and systematic panic. He took exactly $280,000, enough to fund his granddaughter's surgery with substantial money left over for recovery expenses and physical therapy. Desert Mike reviewed security footage frame by frame with obsessive attention to detail and noticed Clay's maintenance truck positioned suspiciously near the cargo bay during the exact time window of the theft. He followed Clay home that evening, watching his modest trailer with military-grade binoculars and surveillance equipment. Clay spotted the professional surveillance using mirrors and old military counter-surveillance techniques he'd learned decades earlier, then used back roads and advanced evasive driving tactics learned in Air Force security training to lose his tail through Nevada's maze of desert highways. "The old man's significantly smarter than he looks," Mike reported to Santos during their next meeting. "He's definitely got professional training, probably military background. We're dealing with someone who actually knows what he's doing, not some amateur opportunist. Clay had now stolen exactly $570,000 total across 5 increasingly dangerous and sophisticated operations. But Santos was closing in fast with professional determination. She'd installed motion sensors throughout all storage areas, implemented mandatory dual-person verification for all case handling, instituted random weight checks of all incoming cargo, and established comprehensive 24-hour surveillance of all key personnel with access to sensitive areas. Santos confronted Clay directly in the employee parking lot after his evening shift, blocking his path to his truck. "I know it's you, old man. The theft pattern matches your shift schedule perfectly, and you're the only one with both access and opportunity. One more theft and I'll have enough evidence to put you away forever. But I'm offering you a choice here. Work for us and get paid well, or watch your precious family suffer the consequences of your decisions." "I honestly don't know what you're talking about," Clay replied, but his hands clenched involuntarily into fists. "Your granddaughter's surgery situation? That's extremely expensive medical treatment. Accidents happen to people who can't pay their medical bills on time. Would be a real shame if something unfortunate happened to that innocent little girl because of her grandfather's poor choices." Lily's orthopedic surgeon delivered absolutely devastating news during an emergency consultation. The window for the less invasive surgical procedure closes in exactly 30 days. After that date, we're looking at major spinal fusion surgery with much higher risks, significantly longer recovery time, and substantially reduced chances of normal mobility. We can't wait any longer. Clay realized with crystal clarity that he had one final chance. The monthly $22 million shipment represented his last opportunity to take enough money to disappear forever and ensure his family's long-term safety. It was literally all or nothing now. Flight 447 from Colombia was confirmed for September 8th, according to the flight manifest. Santos's investigation was closing in with professional thoroughness, and Lily's surgery deadline was approaching like a runaway freight train. Clay knew this was his final roll of the dice in a game where losing meant his granddaughter's future. Sarah called with absolutely devastating news that morning. "Dad, Lily collapsed at school yesterday during recess. The spinal compression is affecting her internal organs now, according to the doctors. They say we need to operate immediately or risk permanent paralysis and potential organ failure." Clay implemented his final plan with surgical precision, honed by 4 decades of professional experience in military training. At exactly 1:45 p.m., he created a false maintenance alert for the private hangar area, triggering automated security protocols that would temporarily clear the restricted zone. At precisely 2 p.m., he positioned his backup vehicle in the maintenance zone, carefully hidden behind legitimate equipment and machinery. At exactly 2:15 p.m., Flight 447 landed perfectly on schedule. Instead of loading the cases into the regular VIP transport vehicle as protocol required, Clay used his administrative maintenance override codes to redirect the cargo to the inspection area for alleged routine security screening. He substituted 4 identical cases filled with aircraft maintenance manuals and technical documentation, then loaded the real cases containing $22 million into his carefully prepared panel van. But serious complications arose immediately. Santos arrived 30 minutes early for personal surveillance, her professional instincts telling her that this was the day Clay would make his final move. The regular pickup crew was delayed by a multi-car traffic accident on Highway 80. Airport security conducted an unexpected random inspection of the maintenance area as part of new protocols. Clay's direct supervisor returned early from his scheduled lunch break. Santos had predicted his move with professional accuracy and set an elaborate trap. At exactly 2:35 p.m., as Clay began the careful case switch, Santos and Desert Mike were waiting in the shadows behind a fuel truck with weapons drawn and ready. At precisely 2:40 p.m., they moved to intercept with military precision. But Clay triggered a fire alarm he'd carefully planted earlier that morning, creating immediate evacuation chaos throughout the entire terminal. Emergency vehicles responded with sirens wailing, personnel evacuating in all directions according to federal protocols. In the resulting confusion and smoke, Clay completed the transfer while Santos lost visual contact in the crowd in emergency response chaos. Santos reached the hangar just as Clay drove away in his maintenance truck, the real cases expertly hidden under standard equipment tarps. She fired 3 desperate shots at his vehicle, bullets starring the rear window, but he escaped using an abandoned runway from the old military base that connected to the civilian airport through a forgotten maintenance gate that most people didn't know existed. Santos immediately commandeered a security helicopter for aerial pursuit, but Clay vanished completely into a maze of abandoned mining roads he'd known intimately since childhood. His truck was found 3 hours later, completely empty, at an old mine shaft. By then, he'd switched to a motorcycle carefully hidden in the extensive mining tunnels and disappeared into the vast Nevada wilderness. While driving through the desert on hidden trails known only to locals, Clay opened one case to confirm the contents. Inside, not just the expected money, but extensive documentation showing detailed payments to corrupt judges and prosecutors, itemized bribes to casino executives for money laundering services, evidence of 3 murders committed to protect the EU operation, and photographs of other families threatened into silence. Clay called Sarah from an untraceable burner phone. "Take Lily to the hospital right now without delay. I'm transferring money for her surgery immediately. Don't ask any questions. Just trust me completely. Everything's going to be okay from now on." Federal agents flooded the area within 2 hours of the theft. Roadblocks appeared on every major highway and interstate. Helicopter surveillance swept desert areas in coordinated search patterns. Media outlets reported a significant airport security breach without revealing specific details. Clay reached an abandoned mining cabin he'd used for hunting trips over the decades, where he'd systematically cached supplies, communication equipment, and emergency provisions. Santos received a threatening phone call from her cartel handlers. "The old man has more than just money. He has everything. Names, dates, bank routing numbers, photographs, documentation. If he talks to the federal authorities, we all go down permanently. Eliminate him immediately before he can cause more damage." The extensive documents revealed murders of 3 other airport workers who'd asked too many questions about the suspicious monthly Colombian flights. Clay realized with growing horror that he wasn't just a thief, he was a witness to multiple homicides committed to protect an $800 million criminal operation. Using sophisticated cryptocurrency transfers and anonymous digital payment systems, Clay funded Lily's complete operation from his desert hideout. The hospital received exactly $300,000 with explicit instructions to provide all necessary care for Lily Dobbs, including post-operative therapy and complete recovery expenses. Clean FBI agents arrived from Washington within 24 hours, led by Special Agent Rachel Martinez, who specialized in complex federal corruption cases. She discovered significant discrepancies in Santos's case files and realized that the airport operation was much bigger than initially reported. Her investigation revealed connections to organized crime families operating across 3 western states. Santos's cartel handlers decided that Clay must be eliminated immediately before he could expose the entire network. Professional contract killer Desert Mike was hired specifically for the assassination mission. Clay's family was placed under constant surveillance. False evidence was planted to discredit him as a dangerous criminal. Media reports portrayed him as an armed robber threatening national airport security. Clay recorded a detailed video message from his hideout. "If something happens to me, this evidence proves that innocent airport workers died because they discovered the truth about systematic money laundering. My granddaughter needed life-saving surgery, but this was never just about money. This is about corruption that goes to the highest levels of federal law enforcement." Desert Mike tracked Clay to his mountain hideout using advanced surveillance equipment and professional tracking techniques. As the professional killer approached through the darkness, Clay made a desperate radio call on emergency frequencies. "Agent Martinez, this is Clay Dobbs calling on emergency channel. I have extensive evidence of murders and federal corruption. If you want the complete truth, you need to find me before they do." Clay faced Desert Mike in brutal hand-to-hand combat in the confined mining cabin. The professional killer was younger and stronger, with extensive combat training, but Clay used improvised weapons from mining equipment and decades of military training and experience. The desperate fight ended with Desert Mike's accidental death when he fell through rotted floorboards into an old mine shaft. Agent Martinez arrived with clean FBI agents just after dawn broke over the mountains. They found Desert Mike's body and weapons, secured Clay's extensive evidence cache, and provided immediate protection for his family. The evidence included detailed financial records, surveillance footage, recorded conversations, and comprehensive documentation of the entire criminal network. Clay's evidence exposed the complete scope. Exactly $800 million laundered through the airport over 3 years, 12 corrupt officials across multiple federal agencies, evidence of 3 murders disguised as workplace accidents and casino. Executives accepting $50 million in bribes to facilitate systematic money laundering operations. Santos realized she was completely trapped when FBI surveillance teams surrounded her home at dawn. Clay's evidence proved her involvement beyond any reasonable doubt. Other corrupt officials prepared to eliminate her to protect themselves in the operation. The FBI closed in with wiretaps, comprehensive financial surveillance, and undercover operations. The story broke nationwide within hours. Airport worker exposes massive corruption. Grandfather risks everything to save dying child. The baggage handler who brought down the cartel. Cable news channels provided continuous coverage of the rapidly unfolding scandal. Lily's surgery was completely successful, funded by Clay's anonymous donation. The spinal correction restored her normal mobility and eliminated her chronic pain permanently. She took her first steps without discomfort in 2 years, while Clay watched from FBI protection, unable to visit but seeing live updates through secure video feeds. Federal prosecutors offered Clay comprehensive immunity, no charges for theft in exchange for complete testimony, witness protection for his entire family, full restitution from seized cartel assets, and official recognition as a federal whistleblower under protection statutes. Santos, facing life imprisonment without possibility of parole, provided detailed testimony naming all participants in the corruption network, specifics of murder cover-ups, and evidence of broader cartel infiltration throughout multiple federal law enforcement agencies. Clay's testimony led to massive prosecutions across multiple jurisdictions. Santos received 15 years for corruption and conspiracy. Cartel operatives faced life sentences for murder and racketeering. Casino executives were charged with money laundering and racketeering. Airport security underwent complete federal overhaul with new protocols. Sarah learned the complete truth about Lily's surgery funding during extensive FBI debriefings. Clay's sacrifice had saved her daughter's life, but the anonymous donation came from stolen money, creating profound moral complexity around a criminal act that saved an innocent child's future. Clay's 40 years of loyal service were finally recognized by federal authorities. He was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom for civilian courage, his pension was restored and enhanced with interest, and he became a federal consultant for anti-corruption efforts nationwide. During Clay's crucial courthouse testimony, a cartel sniper attempted final assassination from a building across the street. FBI counter-sniper teams provided protection, identifying and neutralizing the threat. Clay completed his testimony under active protection, and the cartel operative was captured alive for interrogation. Clay's case led to sweeping nationwide changes. Airport security protocols were completely overhauled with federal oversight. Oversight of private aviation was dramatically increased. Whistleblower protections were strengthened with enhanced legal safeguards, and a permanent cross-agency corruption task force was created. The Dobbs protocol became standard procedure across all federal agencies. Real-time monitoring of high-value cargo movements, mandatory dual-agent oversight for all sensitive operations, automated computer alerts for unusual activity patterns, and enhanced background checks for all airport personnel with security clearances. Internationally, the case exposed a global money laundering network spanning multiple continents. Operations in 12 countries were shut down simultaneously. Over $2.3 billion in cartel assets were seized and returned to victims. Clay's evidence was used in prosecutions worldwide, dismantling criminal networks that had operated for decades. Santos was released after serving 8 years in federal prison. She continued cooperating with federal investigations, worked as a private consultant on corruption cases, and expressed genuine gratitude to Clay for exposing the network that had corrupted her and many others. Clay emerged from witness protection after 3 years of careful federal oversight and reunited with his family in a small Nevada town called Silver Springs, far from the chaos and corruption of Reno. The transition was emotionally overwhelming for everyone involved. Sarah had spent years wondering if she would ever see her father again, while Lily had grown from a sick 8-year-old into a healthy, active 11-year-old. The reunion took place in a secure federal facility before Clay was allowed to return to civilian life. FBI agents monitored the emotional meeting, ensuring security protocols were maintained while allowing the family to reconnect after years of separation. Sarah broke down crying when she saw her father, older and weathered, but alive and safe. Lily was initially shy, but quickly warmed up to the grandfather she had idealized during his absence. Clay opened a successful mechanic shop called Dobbs Aviation Services, specializing in aircraft maintenance and restoration. Utilizing skills developed over 5 decades of working with aircraft systems, the shop became a gathering place for local veterans and aviation enthusiasts who appreciated Clay's expertise and integrity. He provided jobs for other veterans and displaced workers, many of whom had struggled to find employment after military service. The shop's reputation grew steadily as word spread throughout Nevada's aviation community about Clay's exceptional skills and honest business practices. Pilots would fly in from across the western United States to have their aircraft serviced by the man who had become something of a legend in federal law enforcement circles. Clay's attention to detail and commitment to safety made his shop the preferred destination for aircraft owners who valued quality work. Lily, now 13 years old, had developed into a confident and academically gifted teenager who walked and ran normally thanks to her successful surgery. She had no physical limitations and participated actively in school sports, particularly track and field events that emphasized the mobility her grandfather had fought so desperately to preserve. Her medical records showed complete spinal correction with no ongoing complications. She knew the basic story of her grandfather's sacrifice, but didn't fully understand the details of his criminal activities or the federal investigation that had resulted. Clay and Sarah had agreed to wait until she was older to explain the complete truth about how her surgery had been funded and what Clay had risked to save her life. For now, she simply knew that her grandfather loved her enough to give up everything to ensure her health and future. Lily had become an advocate for children with spinal conditions through her involvement with the Nevada Spinal Health Foundation, a charity established with some of the recovered Cartel funds. She spoke at fundraising events, participated in awareness campaigns, and mentored other children facing similar medical challenges. Her public speaking skills and natural empathy made her an effective spokesperson for the foundation's mission. Her academic performance was exceptional, particularly in mathematics and science courses that would prepare her for engineering studies. She had developed a fascination with aerospace engineering, inspired partly by her grandfather's aviation background and partly by her own desire to improve medical devices and surgical procedures. Clay's expertise remained highly valued by federal agencies nationwide, who continued to consult with him on various anti-corruption and airport security initiatives. He traveled periodically to Washington, D.C., Denver, and other major cities to provide training for federal investigators and to testify in congressional hearings about institutional corruption and whistleblower protection. The broader impact of Clay's case had completely transformed federal law enforcement approaches to institutional corruption throughout the United States. 47 corrupt officials had been prosecuted nationwide based on evidence and investigative techniques developed during the Nevada Airport case. Over $2.3 billion in criminal assets had been recovered and returned to victims of organized crime and corruption. New federal protocols had been implemented to prevent similar infiltration of law enforcement agencies. These included enhanced background investigations, periodic polygraph examinations, financial monitoring of key personnel, and mandatory rotation of agents working in high-risk assignments. The changes had been credited with significantly reducing corruption incidents across all federal agencies. Clay was honored by multiple organizations with the Presidential Medal of Freedom for civilian courage under extraordinary circumstances, recognizing his willingness to risk everything to expose institutional corruption and save his granddaughter's life. The ceremony at the White House was attended by his family, federal officials, and other whistleblowers who had been inspired by his example. The Airport Workers Union had created a scholarship in Clay's name, specifically for children of federal employees who had been affected by institutional corruption or retaliation. The scholarship provided full college funding and had helped dozens of families rebuild their lives after experiencing the consequences of speaking truth to power. The program had become a model for other unions and professional organizations. The Nevada governor had officially declared Clay Dobbs Day as an annual recognition of whistleblower courage and institutional integrity. The day was marked by ceremonies at government buildings, educational presentations at schools, and community service projects focused on helping families affected by corruption and crime. The annual observance had spread to other states dealing with similar corruption issues. The case became a mandatory study at law schools throughout the United States, examining the complex ethical questions raised by criminal acts that expose greater crimes and institutional corruption. Legal scholars debated whether Clay's theft could be justified under theories of civil disobedience and necessity, while criminal justice professors used the case to explore whistleblower protections for government employees caught between family, loyalty, and legal obligations. Students at Harvard Law School, Yale Law School, Stanford Law School, and dozens of other institutions wrote dissertations analyzing the moral and legal implications of Clay's actions. The case raised fundamental questions about individual courage against institutional corruption, the adequacy of existing whistleblower protections, and the role of federal employees in exposing criminal activity within their own agencies. Clay attended an emotional memorial service for the three murdered airport workers, Carlos Ramirez, Jennifer Wong, and Frank Murphy. The service was held at a small church in Reno, attended by their families, co-workers, and federal officials who had investigated their deaths. Clay spoke about each victim, honoring colleagues who had died for asking dangerous questions about the suspicious Colombian flights. During his remarks, Clay committed publicly to preventing future tragedies by supporting families of federal whistleblowers who face retaliation for exposing corruption. He announced the establishment of the Fallen Whistleblowers Foundation, funded partially by his consulting fees and federal witness compensation, to provide financial support, legal assistance, and security protection for families of government employees who expose criminal activity. On his official retirement from federal consulting work, Clay received a remarkable package that demonstrated the global impact of his courage and sacrifice. The package contained photographs of 127 children from around the world who had received life-saving medical care funded by criminal assets recovered through investigations inspired by his case. Each photograph was accompanied by a brief story about the child's condition and treatment. An anonymous note accompanying the photographs read, "Your courage saved more than Lily. Thank you for showing us that one person can make a difference, even when facing impossible choices. These children are alive today because you chose love over fear." The note was signed by representatives of federal agencies, international law enforcement organizations, and anti-corruption advocacy groups from 12 countries. The photographs revealed the far-reaching impact of Clay's actions beyond the immediate Nevada airport case. Children in Colombia had received treatment for conditions caused by cartel violence. Kids in Mexico had been helped through medical programs funded by recovered drug money. Families across Central America had benefited from healthcare initiatives supported by seized criminal assets. Clay learned that his actions had inspired other whistleblowers worldwide to come forward with evidence of corruption and criminal activity. Federal agents in other countries had used techniques developed during the Nevada investigation to expose money laundering operations in their own jurisdictions. The ripple effects of his courage had spread across continents and saved countless lives. 10 years after the original theft, Clay was teaching his granddaughter Lily to work on aircraft engines in his Nevada shop during her summer break from MIT, where she was studying aerospace engineering with a focus on improving aviation safety systems. The hangar had become a symbol of redemption and family healing, with photos covering the walls of all the children whose lives had been saved through Clay's sacrifice and courage. Lily, now a confident and accomplished 18-year-old, was planning to specialize in developing advanced medical transportation aircraft that could bring life-saving treatments to remote areas. Her undergraduate thesis focused on improving air ambulance systems in rural regions, directly inspired by her understanding of how access to medical care could mean the difference between life and death for children facing serious health conditions. The hangar wall displayed a carefully curated collection of photographs showing all the children who had been helped through various programs funded by recovered criminal assets. Each photo represented a life saved, a family preserved, a future secured through Clay's willingness to break the law in order to restore justice. A bronze plaque at the center of the display read, "Clarence Dobbs, he chose family over fear." Final statistics painted the full picture. 127 children received life-saving medical care from recovered funds, $2.3 billion in criminal assets returned. To victims of organized crime, 0 successful airport money laundering operations since the reforms, and Clay Dobbs transformed from invisible worker to national hero. The grandfather who stole millions to save his granddaughter became inspiration for whistleblowers everywhere, and a cautionary tale for corrupt officials. But those who knew Clay best understood the deeper truth. Sometimes a man reaches a point where being invisible becomes unbearable, where 40 years of honest service demands recognition, where the only way to matter is to take what the world refuses to give. "All my life I moved other people's money," Clay had said during his final FBI interview. "Finally, I moved my own." Sometimes breaking the law is the only way to restore justice. Sometimes the invisible man must steal the spotlight to save what matters most. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.